Good evening. It's wonderful to see you all. Today is a very special day for me, as it's the 1 year death anniversary of my mother. And my mother is here with me right now. And 1 year ago I was in the hospital. I was sleeping next to my mother, and at about half an hour past midnight, I suddenly woke up, and I didn't quite know why, but I just knew it was time. So I sat with her and held her hand, and I chanted the Metta Sutta. So that's what I would like to start with tonight, is to chant the Metta Sutta. And for those of you who have the chanting book, it's at page 40, or but it's a very well-known sutta, so you might have it from somewhere else. And you're welcome to chant along if you want to. I'll start with that. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Karaniya mata kusalena yam tam sam tam paramabhisamecha sakujucha suhujucha suvachocha samodhanatimani santu sakocha subahocha apakichocha saraukaoti sanindriyocha nipakocha apagabo kulesu ananukido nachakudam samachare kinchi yena vinyu pareo pavareo sukino vake mino honsu sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata yeke chipana bhutati tasavata varava anavasesa nikavaye mahantava majimala sakanukatura nitavaye charita Yetarure vasanti avidure Mutava sambhave siva Sabe sata bandhu sukitata Naparo param nikubeta Nadimalyeta kata chinam kinchi Myarosana patika sanya Namyamanya sarukamicheya Mata yatani ankutam Ayasaeta puramanohake Evam pisava bhutesu Manasam bhavaye aparimanam Metam chasava lokasmin Manasam bhavaye parimanam Uramado chatiriyancha Asambara mavira masapatam Titam charami sinova Dayanova yavata savikatamido Etam sati mariteya Brahmanetam viparamidamahu Nitin chanupagama silava Nasanena sampano Kame suvinea gedam Navidyatu kavaseam Punaretiti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yes, death. It's just a normal part of life, but still it sometimes comes when we don't expect it, or quite often it doesn't come when we don't expect it. When I was a student, I studied geophysics, and not so far from here, I did a field work in that time, a bit further downstream from the river that we're on. And there's this huge rock formation there of chalk. And it's basically an old reef. Like one time it was formed when it was in the tropics, and it was a reef like the Great Barrier Reef, and or probably much bigger even in the time. And for thousands, millions of years, these little creatures have died, and their little skeletons have built up this huge reef or this huge rock formation. Over hundreds of millions of years that has compacted and has been uplifted, and now it is here 500 meters above sea level. And that's not where it stops. There's a lot of erosion, there's like wind and water that runs through that chalk formation, and that chalk comes in the water, and eventually it ends up in our drinking water, or at least part of it, and we drink it again, and that builds up our bones again. So it basically, our bones are built up of the skeletons of creatures that have lived before us. And so also our bones stay, like once I was a little baby in my mother's womb, and now I'm big and she is ashes standing next to me. And these ashes, they also go into nature again, and they become part of nature again, and they take part of this natural cycle. And one day, all these molecules will also be absorbed again by other creatures. Some of the ashes we have put near a tree here that we planted a tree for her here in the monastery. And that tree is a ginkgo, and for those of you who know about trees, it's one of the trees that can become the oldest, or one of the oldest trees that you have in the world. And so the roots of that tree will absorb some of those molecules. So some of the molecules of my mother will go into the leaves and the branches of this tree that can become so old. And that's just natural way in which things are supposed to go. And this is just a natural way, the natural cycle of life. It's like everything gets recycled. So everything we have in our body is recycled materials. It's all comes from nature, and it will go back to nature. And that's just how we are. This is the process that we are. As in the Anatalakkhana Sutta, it says, Neta mamaneso hamasmina meso atati. This is not mine. This is not myself. This is not who I am. This is not me. It is my body. It is a body that I have for a period of time, and then it is recycled again into different organisms, and different creatures will, like part of my body will become part of different creatures again. And my body is also once was part of different creatures. So this is all just a normal cycle of life, and it's a very beautiful thing if you look at it. Now, you probably see this skull here next to me, and those of you who know me from Ananya Vihara, and who see the picture that was also on the announcement for this, that comes from there. We called it Dear Frieds. It's made of plastic, and it was used by medical students to learn how the skeleton is and how it works. But you find it a lot in monasteries as well, because it is a reminder that we are just this process, and we will go back to that. We will go back to being a skeleton, we'll go back to being ashes. And that's just the nature of it. So not to get too attached to all these things. And it's also not something scary. Quite often we relate skeletons with death, but what would life be like if you didn't have a skeleton? I don't think it would be very pleasant. So we need a skeleton to be able to function in this life, and we all have it. So this one is actually a real one. It was also used by medical students in the 1970s when they didn't use plastic yet. So this is what I am. This is what you are. And I can also, like, it's been prepared to open up, and I can study it and look at it. And this kind of thing is done quite often in monasteries, just to see what you can't see it very well on Zoom, but you can show it. And it is just a very normal thing, and it's something very beautiful. It is what gives us our stability. It gives us so much to have this skeleton in our bodies. Like, without that, we wouldn't be able to function. So today I want to propose a skeleton meditation for about half an hour, maybe a little bit more. So we can just have a taste of like how, especially monastics, but I think also a lot of other meditation groups use this kind of meditation sometimes, to just come to grips with the fact that this is not mine. It is just a natural thing that I have for some time, but it's also a very beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, intricate way in which nature does things, and we're just part of that. And not to grasp too much to it, because it will change. All of it will change. So I suggest a meditation. So please sit comfortably. And it's okay to just take a little time to really relax. Relax all your muscles. That's always a good thing to do for every meditation. Just make sure that you're sitting quite comfortably and that you don't need to fidget later on. You can, especially your legs, and just ask your legs, how are you feeling? Can I do something for you? You can take a few deep breaths. And with every out breath, let yourself relax into your cushion. And you feel relaxed. Just bring your attention to the top of your head, to the top of your skull. And just imagine what that looks like. What it feels like. And the hardness of the bone. Maybe the color. Just imagine the color, sort of creamy white, sitting inside your head. And the structure. It's actually quite porous. And then slowly move down. Just try to envision how a skull sits in your head. How it protects your brain. And your eyes. If you want, you can bring your hands to your head and just feel. That helps you to visualize it. The cheekbones, the eye sockets. And the jaw, upper jaw and the lower jaw. And the teeth. The teeth you can feel quite well. A bit of a different structure. And take your time to explore. To visualize this skull inside your head. Quite often we don't actually think about how the skeleton feels inside of us. So we tend to feel our muscles when they ache. With our skeleton, we don't tend to think about so much. going down along the spine, all the vertebrae. One's in the neck. You can move the spine a little bit and see how that moves. All these vertebrae move in relation to each other. That makes you able to move in all kinds of directions. See if you can feel each one, each vertebrae going all the way down to the tailbone. Just remember how all this amazing structure has developed out of the food that you eat and drink. And see how your skull sits on top of the vertebrae, top of the spine, and can move in relation to it. Quite often we don't actually think about our skeleton until something's wrong with it, until we break one. And then we become very aware of it. We just go to the shoulders, shoulder bones, and shoulder blades. And the rib cage and all the ribs. Now that I are connected to the chest bone. visualize all your ribs, the whole rib cage inside of yourself. And move along your arms, the upper arm, bone in there, the elbow. And the two bones in the lower arm. And that allows us to move. It all moves in relation to each other. Can you visualize it? Can you visualize all these bones? You feel the texture, the hardness. Come to the wrist. And yet there became many bones, and in the hand as well. If it's helpful, you can just take the other hand and just feel. Feel all those bones in your hand. In each finger. These bones that allow us to grasp things. Pick up things. And very fine bones. And then do the same with the other arm. Can you visualize the whole of your top part of your body and all the bones in it? And go down to the becken. And feel those bones. And the thigh bones. And the knee. And it allows us to be able to sit right now. And the two bones in the lower part of the leg. Shin bone. Can you visualize it? Can you see it? And the ankles. And all the bones in your feet. So many of them. Allow us to walk. To have stability. With every step, all these little bones move in relation to each other. Can you visualize all those little bones? Also the other leg. The thigh and the knee. Bones in the lower leg. The ankle. And then the other foot. All those little bones running right through the foot and into the toes. And see if you can visualize the whole skeleton as it is sitting right there. See yourself as a skeleton just sitting. In Anandya Vihara, we used to Take the plastic skeleton and sit it on a meditation mat with us. Put a rope around it. Just to remind us that this is us. Stay there for a few minutes, just observing the whole skeleton as it's sitting right there. Now imagine that in the future there comes a time that all of us will have to pass away, and our bones not just sitting on a mat anymore, but lying on the ground. And then slowly you see them, how they become grey, get scattered around. They slowly start to fall apart. Some break. They deteriorate to ashes, to powder. You see your bones. It was once your bones. Some of the dust gets taken up by the wind. The rain washes some of it into the ground, where it's taken up by plants and eaten by animals. And what was once your bones now become the bones of somebody else for a while. While you have moved on, your consciousness your bones become part of nature again. And nourish other creatures, help other creatures to grow. It's this beautiful gift to nature. Maybe one day another human being. Their bones will grow to the food they eat. And one day in the future, molecules of your body, of your bones, will strengthen them and allow them to live. And then we're round again. We're in our body again, seeing, observing this skeleton inside of us. A beautiful gift we've been given from others, and creatures that went before us. And for a little while, we can use this skeleton until it's time to give it back to nature again. We are coming near to the end of the meditation. Just let the image of the skeleton go. And come back to a neutral space, empty, open and clear. Take a few minutes to reflect back on the meditation. What did you do? How did that feel? Did it bring up any specific emotions? And finally, it's a little metta meditation to share the merits that we've made. Let's look at ourselves first. Our body. May I be happy. May my body be happy. May I feel grateful for this wonderful body that's given me life and so many experiences. May my family members and friends be happy. May they share in the merits that I've made through my practice. The merits that I'm making through my practice every day. And all the beings in the building that I'm in the room that I'm in. You can see them or not. Other human beings or animals or something else. May they all be happy. May they all be happy. May all beings in this town or village that I'm in be happy. In the world, in the country, in the continent, in the world, There's so many suffering beings. And they will share in the merits that I'm making through my practice. And they will find the path to Nibbana. And they will find an end to their suffering. Let's return from the world to the continent, the country. To this town and village. In this building that I'm in, this room. May all beings be happy. May they be happy. Say to yourself, may I be happy. May I be happy. You're one among all beings. May you also be happy. You can slowly open your eyes and just stay in the present moment. Okay. Welcome back. Well, I hope you enjoyed this meditation, although maybe enjoyed is not quite the right term, but it's always good to reflect sometimes of what we are and what this body is. And the Buddha kept on stressing it quite often, that quite often we take this body as being something of ourselves, something that's me or mine, and to keep on just reflecting. It's easy enough to say intellectually, oh, I know that. I know it's not mine. I know it's part of nature. But on a deeper level, quite often we don't know. And it's not until we lose something that we really know if we were attached to it. So it's good to keep on reflecting like this occasionally. It's also one of the first reflections in the Satipatthana Sutta, is to reflect on death, on this body, on the bones, on everything that we're made up of. This is like, where do I take myself to be? What do I think is mine? Do I think I have any control over this body? So with that, I will want to end, and we can chant the closing chant, which is on page 3 if you have the book. Abhang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddha Bhagavanta Mabhivademi Swagato Bhagavata Namo Dhamma Namasami Supatipanno bhagavato savaga sangho sangham namami